So as of January 2025, I've now had the Capital One Venture X for 1 entire year. And in that time, it's been my daily driver credit card, meaning I've put the majority of the spending that I've done right here on this card. I've also gone on 1 big vacation though, and 4 to 5 work trips, as well as 2 to 3 small weekend trips with my wife, all the while using this card. So I thought that this would be the perfect time to share with you the reality of holding the Capital One Venture X against my expectations that I had before I got approved for the credit card. This is going to be a fun one, so let's dive right in. Before I got the Capital One Venture X for myself, I had done a ton of research about this card, and I formed a pretty strong picture in my mind as to what it could do for me if I had it myself. I'll tell you right now that since I've been using this card for an entire year, some of the expectations in my head have actually been met, while others have been pretty far off of what I thought going in. I'm going to share with you 7 of my biggest expectations and how the reality of holding the card really did compare. This will be a great video if you have the Venture X yourself, because you can compare what you've done to what I've done over the first year. But it'll be especially important if you don't have this credit card, because what you're learning from me will be able to help you make a better decision on your own. My first expectation when I picked up this credit card, and one of the biggest reasons I applied for it in the first place, was I figured that with the earning multipliers, I could earn a ton of miles without any problems whatsoever. After 1 year holding the card, I'd say my experience met that expectation exactly. The first thing that surprises a lot of people when they start looking into the Venture X for themselves is how good the earnings multipliers on the card actually are. Of course, you have the 10x on hotel and rental cars and the 5x on flights and vacation rentals. Of course, all of those purchased through the Capital One travel portal, and then 2x miles back on everything else you buy. And that is quite unique for a premium luxury travel credit card. Strangely, when you compare it to cards like the Platinum card or the Chase Sapphire Reserve, outside of the travel categories, which are elevated with both of those as well, they don't earn well at all for your everyday purchases. Even comparing the Venture X to a normal cashback card like the Fidelity 2% cashback Visa, the Venture X stacks up really well with its 2x on everything else. So this was a very appealing card to me, not just from the benefits I'd get, but also being able to spend on it and earn miles frequently. The bottom line is that I was able to earn 120,000 miles on this credit card year 1. And a lot of that was just being able to pull it out and swipe it on non-category purchases. My second expectation before getting this card was that I actually thought the Venture X might one day replace every other credit card inside my wallet. The reality of that went much worse than I ever could have expected. Now, I know I just talked about how good the earnings are on the Venture X, and that's a big reason that I thought between the good earnings and the strong travel benefits, I may not actually need to build out a super extensive wallet setup to get a pretty good value for my regular spending. After 1 year, I can confidently say for a good wallet setup, you do not want to rely too heavily on just this card. Now, if you're wondering on how to create a good wallet setup, I made a video on this channel about how to create the perfect wallet setup for most of you out there. So you can pause this right now and hop over and watch that to see how I would build that out if I were starting from scratch. However, for this video, it was apparent that there were 3 categories that stuck out to me that just do not go very well with the Venture X when you could be getting much higher earnings rates with another card. The 3 most notable categories that I wouldn't recommend spending on your Venture X in would be the dining or restaurant category, the gas category, and of course, the grocery category. For me this year, I ended up pulling out the Chase Sapphire Preferred and getting 3x back on dining out. For gas, I do have my 2 rotating category credit cards in the Freedom Flex and the Discover It, but unfortunately in Q2, they were both set to gas. So I did end up using a lot of Venture X or cards I was chasing sign-up bonuses on to fill the gas category this year. And finally, for the grocery category, a lot of you know that I shop at Walmart, so I did use the Venture X. But if you yourself shop at a grocery store that'll categorize as groceries, using the Venture X in grocery purchases means you're losing out on a lot of value. My next expectation was that I thought I would book some pretty incredible redemptions using all of my Capital One miles. In reality, this ended up way worse than I thought. Like I said, in my first year on the card, I accumulated 120,000 Capital One miles, worth roughly $1,200 if I just redeem them through the travel portal, getting 1 cent per mile in value. That is a ton of miles and a ton of value ready to go for travel. However, if you're in the credit card game, you realize that you often want to do a lot better than just 1 cent per mile in the travel portal. So I kept waiting on that redemption. And actually, in the first year, I never found the trip that I wanted to spend those miles on that would get me great value. I've talked about this before, but the transfer partner list is the big reason why this never happened. The Capital One transfer partners are a very international list, and I just do most of my traveling within the United States at this point in my life. If you look at the hotel transfer partners, you do have 2 United States-based hotels, but in either of them, you're not going to get even better value than just booking at 1 cent per mile in the travel portal, so those are crossed off as well. Now, the way I'm approaching this is I'm going to continue to bank Capital One miles for a future international trip. Who knows when that may be? And if you find yourself in a similar situation, I think one thing that could help would be signing up down below to be notified if there are any transfer bonuses off of your Capital One Venture X card. Even though Capital One may not have the best transfer partners, you can use a bonus notification to take advantage of the best times to actually transfer those miles out so that you do have a better chance of getting really good value. My next expectation was that Capital One Venture X Lounge Access was absolutely going to transform my airport experiences. Honestly, even though I set the bar very high on this one, I have to say the card did meet my expectations. Now, I was more excited for this benefit than taking advantage of any other benefit on the card, and trust me, there are a ton of different benefits that this card has. I even felt like a travel YouTube vlogger at one point because I took out my phone and documented my experiences inside the Capital One Denver Lounge and inside the Capital One Dallas Fort Worth Lounge, and I'll leave the tags to those videos up on this one right now so you can see those if you'd like. Now, the only reason why I say my experience was met instead of exceeded, even though I had so much fun in Denver and Dallas Fort Worth in those Capital One lounges, is that those high quality, top tier lounges through the Venture X are actually pretty hard to come by. Once you get through the 3 Capital One flagship lounges, you're mostly left with Priority Pass as your main lounge access option. And in the United States, those can be very hit or miss. There are also some real obstacles that you don't even think about before you get a credit card with great lounge access that limits you from visiting those lounges when you're traveling. That can be running into stuff like a bad location, the lounge not being in the part of the airport that you need it. Overcrowding, of course, is a massive issue. Deciding you want to go for a better food or drink option in the concourse as opposed to the appetizers offered in most lounges, or even just booking direct flights or not having a layover that makes it worth visiting a lounge. The bottom line is that I did have a great experience using the lounge access with the Venture X and highly recommend it to anybody who takes that seriously. However, just know there are going to be realistic complications in visiting lounges every single time, and you may run into some hit or miss lounges from time to time. My next expectation before getting the Venture X was that TSA Precheck and the Hertz President Circle status offered complimentary on the card would be nice, but they wouldn't be game changers whatsoever. However, in reality, both of these well exceeded my expectation. TSA Precheck is not something I would ever purchase without a credit card that gives you access. However, more and more today, even on mid-tier travel credit cards, TSA Precheck is offered as a credited benefit to wipe away the cost of going for that service. The process is really pretty simple. You can enroll online and pay a registration fee of about $85. Then you'll schedule an appointment in person, and after about 15 minutes, will be granted TSA Precheck status for the next 5 years. When I did this and it was credited back through the Venture X, I got expedited screening where I didn't have to remove my belt or take anything like laptops or electronics out of my backpack when I was traveling. And because I'm always working on this YouTube channel in my spare time, that's a lot of stuff sometimes for me. And even though I fly out of the Kansas City airport, which is not the busiest airport in America, it's also not the smallest. So all of those things together did make a big difference on my trips this year. The Hertz President Circle status was something that I also really underrated before actually experiencing it myself. The best 2 features with that are the ability to skip the line and also get a free class rental upgrade guaranteed whenever you rent a vehicle through Hertz. A lot of the rental vehicles I have to book are through work trips, and I can use my Venture X on the front and then get reimbursed by my company on the back. But the problem is, you always have to book something really economically reasonable when you're paying for it with company money. So for me, that's usually getting an economy car or smaller. However, just as an example, on one of my trips this year, I did rent that economy car, but then got upgraded because of my President Circle status to a Jeep Gladiator truck, which was really cool and something I would not have thought to experience without this card. My second to last expectation is that when I got the card, I figured that this card would only at most cost me $95 because of that $300 travel credit that you always hear talked about on the Venture X. In reality, I probably got even way better value than paying $95 for this card with all of the things I used on it. And a lot of that was because of the travel credit that this card does offer, so it did meet my expectation. I will say that as far as credits on credit cards go, the Venture X's $300 travel credit is one of the best ones out there. On January 10th, right after I was approved for the card, the $300 credit was loaded into my account. Using it was as easy as applying it to my first flight, which came out to a little bit over $200. And fortunately, Capital One allows you to split this credit into multiple purchases, so I finished off the rest of the travel credit later in the year to zero out that balance and get a full $300 worth of value from this feature. The bottom line is that when a card like the Venture X has a high annual fee, and this one does, you have to put a plan together to get your money's worth out of it. Fortunately, your plan doesn't have to be anything special with this card, as I experienced in the first year that just traveling 1 to 2 times, that's gonna make all the difference and make it a really justifiable annual fee to pay. Finally, my last expectation was that when I got the Venture X, I would never need to go for another luxury travel credit card again. Unfortunately, reality ended up being worse than my expectation. This is the perfect way to close out this video because it's kind of a window into my thought process about whether I'll keep the Venture X long term. I realized after holding this card for a year, it is maybe one of my favorite credit cards in my wallet. I certainly use it the most. However, long term, you have to balance the travel benefits like the lounge access, the rental car status, the protections and benefits that you get on it, against the fact that you're earning a lot of miles that can be honestly sometimes hard to use. You've got to find a good balance between accumulating a lot of miles, but actually being able to use those miles for trips that you want to take. I could see myself long term always keeping the Venture X. Like I said, I think the benefits are just that good. But I could also see myself branching into other luxury travel credit cards to take advantage of their benefits and also use some of their point multipliers to get their currency, because I think there are more valuable currencies out there to have than Capital One miles. That's only for my situation though. You guys already know that I'm willing to juggle multiple cards in a wallet setup and multiple different issuers and keep track of all of the perks and benefits on the back end. I genuinely hope sharing my experiences year one with this card against what I expected it all to be was helpful for you, especially if you're considering getting the card for yourself. Now, if you are, using the link down below in the description is a free way to help support this channel and is so appreciated out there for anybody who decides to do that. For everybody out there, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.